why, among the wide variety of things that I could have done, that I settled on psychic phenomena is because I convinced myself through my own experiments and through watching the experiments of others that these effects are real. And if they are real, then it means that the large bulk of science has completely sidestepped something of profound interest and probably profound importance. Because anytime science has ignored something or partitioned off this area of the world we're not going to look at, it means that, you know, we're not getting a comprehensive view of reality.
Every civilization is a reflection of its knowledge. Civilization is based upon knowledge, the prevailing paradigm. Now you look at the globe today, our rainbow-colored globe, you see arbitrary divisions among nations, among peoples. These are completely random, completely arbitrary, based upon who owned what at what period of time in history. But if somebody in the future looks back upon our globe of today, they're going to say this is a fragmented world based upon a fragmented worldview.
There was a quite noticeable shift in the thrust of the teachings of Jesus from, say, the teachings of the Old Testament. For instance, he said, it was said to the men of old, quoting Moses, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, forgive your enemies. And he always stressed how important the thought was.
In the new paradigm, it would be certainly a lot different than it is now. I'm just thinking of how any garbage that comes into anyone's mind, any garbage is strewn out onto the airwaves. You know, children grew up hearing garbage, playing garbage, and every time to take an extreme view, every time a little man kills another little man in a computer game, I mean, something has changed in the brain of that kid.
Anytime a worldview changes, it will affect behavior, affects society, affects economy. Everything reflects the sense of what the worldview is. So if we imagine the worldview as a giant machine that's there to be exploited, then that's the way we'll do. That's what'll happen. That's the way we'll operate. That's why business goes crazy sometimes, because the nature of the game is get as much as you can. If that changes, I mean, probably the closest parallel I can think of is the ecology movement. Before an ecology movement, the notion of sustainability, of rare resources, of paying attention to the world as an organism was laughable. And we still see the effects worldwide when people don't pay attention to the fact that we're living in a closed space. There's a limited amount of stuff to use. That makes a big difference. So how will it make a difference if people imagine that the ecology extends into the mind? Well, there might be a kind of a closed space there too. You start making it dirty and putting in a bunch of bad stuff in there, you're going to end up with a bad mind environment.
I believe that children are our canaries, and they are like the canaries in the mines that were keeling over to warn the miners that they better get out. I mean, I think some of the things we're seeing with the children today is a sign that the culture is in the wrong paradigm and not appreciating the power of thought.
It may very well be that what's going on inside of you, in your brain, in your nervous system, in your nature of observation, how memory works, how mind works, it may very well be that what is happening there is some kind of observer-matter interrelationship which is indeed making things real for you, affecting how you perceive reality. It's not changing the reality out there. You're not changing big chairs and big trucks and bulldozers and rockets taking off. You're not changing those, no. But you're changing how you perceive things and maybe how you think about the things, how you feel about things, how you sense the world.
The infinite information that the brain is processing every single second tells us that there's more to the world than we're perceiving. However, every single time we're immersed in an experience with our senses, seeing, smelling, tasting, feeling, as we're immersed centrally in our reality.
We know nothing about reality, and all of our sense of so-called reality out there is filtered through our sense organs.
The brain processes 400 billion bits of information a second, but we're only aware of 2,000 of those. That means that reality is happening in the brain all the time.
You should try it. How do I know what I'm doing? I and the vase are one. Hey, might help your work too. I live through my eyes.
Acting in reality.
Not just some nebulous, nothing, touchy-feely world of shifting whatevers.
If it's real, I want to see it.
Reality, what a concept.
What is reality, and is it ever knowable?
The easy answer to the question as to whether reality itself is illusory and it's really all fuzzy and it's all just probabilities. The easy answer to that would be yes. So, you know, if I were hurrying off to a meeting instead of being interviewed and somebody came up to me and pestered me on the street and asked that question, and I'd say, yes, that's basically right. But it's more complicated than that, because at the moment that you interact with reality, it does then come into absolutely rock-solid existence. It's only fuzzy when you're not interacting with it.
When we look at some of the modern scientific views of reality that have tried to get down to the nitty-gritty, we see that at its ultimate level, say in M theory or string theory, that reality is not solid, it's mostly empty space, and whatever solidity it has seems more to resemble a hologram picture rather than material, harsh, solid reality. It's a shimmering reality that seems to be very susceptible to the power of thought.
Very powerful mystical experiences are perceived to represent a truer form of reality, a more fundamental level of reality that makes this material world really not mean as much. And you know, some people have described it as an illusion, which I think is sometimes a little strong, but I think the point they're trying to make is that it just doesn't have the realness, the quality of realness that these states have. And the ultimate goal of the mystic then, once they've had that experience, is to kind of keep trying to get back to that experience, because that is, in their eyes, what represents the fundamental level of reality.
We have to go beyond our senses to create a new paradigm. Our senses determine everything that exists in our world. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the end of our world. We have to embrace knowledge that's unconventional, that's in the unseen. And if we can wire it in our brain first, then what has always existed will now be seen by us. That's the paradigm shift.
You ever close your eyes when you're making love?
The eyes are like the lens, but the tape that's really seeing is the back of the brain. It's called the visual cortex. It's right back here. It's like this camera and it's tape.
The eyes are, in some senses, a camcorder, because they are taking that information and they're storing it, but you're not really able to get it to mean anything until you actually put it all together. So in some senses, it requires the editor's table to really put the whole thing together, to put the movie together of what your life and your world is actually about.
The only movie that's playing in the brain is what we have the ability to see. So is it possible our eyes, our cameras see more than what our brain has the ability to consciously project?
Well, the way our brain is wired up, we only see what we believe is possible. We match patterns that already exist within ourselves through conditioning. So a wonderful story that I believe is true is that when the Indians, the Native American Indians on the Caribbean islands, saw Columbus's ships approaching, they couldn't see them at all because it was so unlike anything they had ever seen before. They couldn't see it.
If I get out of bed in the morning, okay, and I suddenly decide to take very seriously the claim, which is surely a true claim, that I don't know for sure if my eyes are working correctly, okay? So that for all I know, even though it looks like there's a stable floor by the side of my bed, there might be a cliff or something like that, okay? If I am unable to order those possibilities in terms of probabilities that I assign to them, then I'm not going to get out of bed. Seems to